Hi everyone! In today's new manhwa recap, we're covering the Cinderella-like story of Blondina, a girl whose life changes overnight when her father, the emperor, suddenly brings her to the palace to live among his legitimate and very unpleasant children. How will she survive in a world that never wanted her there? Let's find out. And don't forget to like and subscribe, it really helps us bring more amazing content. Ready? Let's go! So Blondina is a young blonde girl with soft grey eyes. Her mother has passed away and she never knew who her father was. She works at a small inn owned by a cruel man who beats her whenever he feels like it. To him, she is nothing more than a burden. One day, drowning in gambling debts, he threatens to sell her to a local baron, a man infamous for torturing and killing young girls just like her. Terrified of such a horrific fate, Blondina runs into the streets. She was crying and shaking. As she stumbles forward, she falls to the ground, and from her neck slips a precious ring. It's the only thing her mother left her. Before she died, she told Blondina that the ring was a gift from her father, and that she must protect it at all costs. But Blondina is desperate. She cannot live like this anymore. She needs money, she needs freedom, and she needs to escape. So she walks into a pawn shop. At first, the owner dismisses her coldly, but the moment he sees the ring, his expression changes completely. He stands up abruptly, asking where she stole it from. Instead of buying it, he returns with thoughts. Blondina thinks she's doomed. Instead, she's taken to an incredibly luxurious place, far beyond anything she has ever seen. She sits trembling in a corner. She's overwhelmed and confused. Then a man enters. He asks her about her mother, and then he calmly tells her the truth. He's her father, the emperor. A few days later, after arriving at the palace, Blondina begins learning the strict imperial etiquette and rules. Everything feels cold and unfamiliar. One morning, a servant wakes her and informs her that she's summoned to a tea party with the emperor. When she arrives, he introduced her to her half-siblings, Leopard and Adelaide. Their smiles are polite, but their eyes are not. The emperor then reminds Blondina of the fabricated story they must all maintain. Officially, she had been frail and recovering in another kingdom. No one must know she was raised as a commoner. After the tea party, Lord corners her in the corridor and begins insulting her openly. To his surprise, Blondina answers back, calmly and sharply, humiliating him without raising her voice. His anger flares instantly. She doesn't even understand why he reacts so strongly. Adelaide intervenes, pretending to restore order while clearly looking down on Blondina. Blondina simply smiles politely, brushes off the tension, and leaves. She has no interest in fighting them. She just wants peace. On her way back to her room, she hears a faint meowing from the garden. Curious, she follows the sound and discovers a small black kitten with an injured leg. The kitten suddenly speaks in a human voice, insisting he's not a cat. Blondina, however, remains unimpressed. She gently examines his leg and uses a broken branch nearby to support it. She notices two other cats hiding behind the bushes and scolds them for bullying their injured friend. They quickly run away. Blondina offers to take the kitten back to the palace. At first, he protests, clearly looking down on her, but when she quietly admits that she feels lonely and that he might be her first real friend there, he hesitates and then jumps into her arms. If anyone understands reduction, it's him. They head towards her room, but when they encounter a servant, Blondina suddenly freezes in fear, instinctively tightening her grip on the kitten. The kitten senses her anxiety. His presence intensifies. The servant immediately drops to the ground in a deep bow. Blondina stares in shock. The kitten leaps from her arm and transforms into a handsome, dark-skinned boy. The servant recognizes him instantly. The black leopard, the most feared among them all. Blondina is stunned by his appearance, but she's far more terrified. The boy quickly delivers a royal bracelet from the emperor and dismisses the servant. When he turns back to Blondina, she frustrates him by failing to acknowledge his obvious greatness. Slightly offended, he transforms back into a cat and allows himself to be carried again. Back in her room, he introduced himself as Almond. By the time she finishes tending to his injured leg, night has fallen. Almond decides to stay. He explains that she is a rare exception because normally his kind despises humans, seeing them as foolish, but Blondina is different. They talk casually into the night. Before sleeping, he warns her not to touch the stone on his forehead. From that day on, Almond finds countless excuses to visit her around the palace. Meanwhile, the Emperor searches desperately for someone with blonde hair, golden eyes, and the power to command the divine leopards. Blondina has the hair, but her eyes are grey. He remembers her mother, a woman who matched the description perfectly but lacked the power. Despite everything, he loved her deeply. He had left her and their child to seize the throne, believing it was the only way to protect them. Days later, Blondina and her lady-in-waiting, Lucy, discuss how long it has been since Almond last visited. Suddenly, the cat appears out of nowhere, holding a bleeding sparrow in his mouth. Lucy gasps and rushes out, unable to bear the sight. Blondina looks at Almond carefully, and something about him feels different. Blondina tries to explain gently to Almond that humans usually find little sparrows adorable, but only when they are alive. Almond narrows his eyes at the motionless bird and coldly orders it to get up, even though it was clearly dead. To everyone's shock, the sparrow suddenly flutters back to life. It hurriedly explains that it was pretending to be dead out of fear of Almond's terrifying teeth. Blondina stares in disbelief and asks how it can even speak. The sparrow explains that Almond shared a small portion of his power with him. Since he has no name, Blondina smiles and decides to name him Magito, much to Bird's overwhelming joy. Meanwhile, Almond grows curious about humans and their weapons. He wants to observe an archery contest to study them more closely, but he must remain anonymous. Blondina attempts to put a beanie on his head to hide the transformation stone in his forehead, the one that would instantly reveal his identity. Although he could attend in human form, he knows that revealing himself publicly could cause complications later, so he chooses to go in his leopard form. At the contest ground, the Emperor arrives grandly with Lard and Adelaide, leaving Blondina walking alone behind them. He announces the beginning of the hunt. After some time, Almond grows bored. Blondina suggests that they wander towards the trees instead. As she admires one particularly beautiful tree, an arrow suddenly whistles past their ear. She freezes. Almond's eyes blaze with rage. Lard steps out, smug and taunting. That is the last mistake he makes. Almond lunges. In one swift motion, he transforms and slams the prince to the ground, pressing him beneath his paw. Lard gasps for air as Almond increases the pressure on his chest and neck. He begs. Almond does not listen. Blondina rushes forward, trembling but determined. She admits that Lard deserves punishment, but that may be too extreme. Almond threatens the prince one final time before stepping away. He asks Blondina if they can return to the palace together. Later, Lard storms into Adelaide and complains furiously. Surprisingly, she does not support him. She calmly tells him that his reckless behavior could have damaged their reputation severely. Still, she assures him that she will personally handle the matter. Adelaide then goes to the Emperor's office, appearing distressed. She argues that the imperial family's authority is weak because the divine leopards roam freely without restraint. Emperor studies his daughter carefully. He considers her as a possible heir and begins recounting an ancient legend. The legend of golden-eyed blonde's descendant from Barahan, heir of the first god. Only they possess the power to truly subdue the divine leopards. He encourages Adelaide to find such a person and bring them to the palace, so she may secure her future as empress. Back in Blondina's room, Almond playfully bats at a ball of yarn while Magito flutters around him. The cat jokingly threatens to eat either Blondina or Lucy for neglecting him. Blondina laughs and says she probably wouldn't taste good anyway. She grew up eating scraps and junk food. Almond's expression shifts. He asks quietly if her childhood is the reason she fears large, rough-looking men. She stiffens. She refuses to answer. She is not ready to speak about it. Soon after, Blondina prepares for a grand party organized by the Emperor. She enters the ballroom without Almond and instantly feels the weight of whispers. Guests gossip about her dress, her background, her isolation. The Emperor greets Lard and Adelaide warmly and urges them to include their sister and not leave her alone. None of them want to socialize together, but they have to. When they join Their friends, Lard and Adelaide, deliberately switch to a language Blondina does not understand, clearly mocking her. Adelaide turns towards her sister and offers to include her in the conversation. Blondina responds calmly but sharply. Even if she had something impressive to boast about, she dislikes such shallow behavior. She would rather step out for fresh air. Adelaide watches her leave, puzzled by how Blondina seemed to grasp the mockery despite not understanding the language. Nearby, a young Marcus named Philip watches Blondina with interest. Outside, Blondina sits alone on a bench. She reflects that she does not need to understand every word to know when she is being ridiculed. She unwraps a small piece of pie and loudly comments on how delicious it is. Suddenly, a blur of black fur. Almond appears out of nowhere and steals the pie. Blondina bursts into laughter and hugs him tightly, far happier with his company than with any humans. The next day, Blondina learns how to play chess with Lucy when Marcus Philip is announced at the door. She is cautious, unsure of his intentions. He presents her with gifts: tea, flowers, and a beautiful brooch. He explains that his family tradition is to gift one to each imperial princess. Adelaide received one as well. He then invites Blondina to his upcoming birthday celebration. Almond, however, is not pleased. He attempts to break the gifts and even bites Philip's legs. Furious, Almond demands to know what this human wants from her. Blondina cannot answer. She truly does not know Philip's intention. In frustration, Almond shatters the flower pot. Blondina hugs him gently, calming him down, and he settles. He asks if she intends to attend the party. She hesitates first because on one hand she cannot avoid social gatherings forever. On the other, she is exhausted from being judged, and she does not know which world she truly belongs to. Blondina was feeling belittled because of her lack of imperial education. Almond, noticing her quiet frustration, gently offers her to teach Old Artesian, the very language Adelaide and Lard used to mock her. They begin their lessons immediately. Blondina wonders how he plans to write and teach her with paws instead of hands. But before she can ask, he transforms back into human form. She freezes, her cheeks flush instantly. She tries to protest, insisting he doesn't need to change forms just to teach her. Being around him like this makes her far too flustered. Almond notices and he enjoys it. He leans closer than necessary